Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new NVIDIA daily update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over NVIDIA. Let's talk about what is happening to NVIDIA stock, what we can expect moving forward, and all that good stuff. If you enjoy, please don't forget to hit that like button. It does help a lot. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, if you enjoy my technical analysis, I do share my thoughts with my members every single day the market is open, as the market is trading constantly throughout the entire day. These were all the posts just from today, by the way, so hey, check it out if you're interested. Just for $3 a month USD, it gives you access to the first tier, which includes Tesla stock, options flow, technical analysis, again, as the market is trading every single day. Tier 2 for $5 a month gives you access to Tesla and NVIDIA if you're interested. And Tier 3 for $6.99 gives you access to obviously everything before that, plus non-Tesla, non-NVIDIA stocks that I talk about, and stock requests, chart requests that I do with members as well. So other stocks like AMD, like lately I've been talking about Pepsi, Reddit even, right? So check it out if you're interested. Link is below. But jumping into NVIDIA, closing the day, pretty much flat, up about a quarter of a percentage. Closing at 117.37 per share, compared to the market, definitely a little bit of an underperformance. QQQ up a respectable 1%, but end of the day, market definitely took a bit of a beating. So what is going on with NVIDIA? What can we expect moving forward with NVIDIA? What is the main play here and all of that? So let's talk about it. So NVIDIA, starting off with the 1 hour chart, right? The 1 hour chart is very interesting here because, well, you can see it's in this sort of rising channel, right? It's in a bit of a rising channel where you can see it's been pretty much zigzagging. It hasn't really touched the bottom of the end of the spectrum in quite a while now, but touched it twice here, and now it's essentially hugging the top line. So the way I look at it is this: NVIDIA, it's at a very major inflection point, I guess you can say, where on the daily it actually does show it a little bit better. Where, again, I view this area right around this sort of starting at 117 to as high as about 120. The sort of $3-ish range, I do view this as a pretty massive area of resistance. For, again, several reasons. I've talked about them and I'll explain them again. So number one, you have the rising channel, right? So this one right here, you can see this right here, rising channel, right? Again, it's pretty much around these general levels, 118, 119, even as slightly as high as 120, right? But it's around this general vicinity. We have the horizontal resistance. We have the descending channel resistance. You can see right above us, that's rejected, NVIDIA several times, which we're pretty much at it right now, like the same way we were all these times. And this is when everyone gets very bullish just to get trapped. I mean, this could be this could be different. This time could be different, right? We could get that breakout, but this point, the same way I said up here, it's like this point, you might as well just wait to see if that breakout happens or not, right? There's just no reason to buy up here, at least in my opinion, right? Not financial advice. There's no reason to buy up here. You're buying at a resistance at a point where it could just easily get a massive rejection. Like, it's a high risk, low reward, right? At least in my opinion, as opposed to just waiting a few extra dollars. Yeah, you'll miss a bit of upside, but then you'll have potentially a lot more security behind it, or confidence, I should say, behind it, technically speaking, and whatnot. So anyway, that's just my opinion, of course. You do you, of course. It's your money. You do what you want with your money. It's completely up to you. But that's my opinion. And on top of that, there's also the Ballinger Bands, right? Bring out the Ballinger Bands. We're pretty much right at the top of the Ballinger Bands on NVIDIA. This is a stock that actually does respect the Ballinger Bands surprisingly a decent amount, at least recently, right? Where you can see anytime we've been near the upper end of the Ballinger Bands, we've gotten a massive rejection. Anywhere around the bottom end of the Ballinger Band, got a massive support, came back down, obviously hugged it a bit over here, but the point is the fact that, ended up finding support sooner than later. And then even when we had the whole market sell-off, same idea, it came to the bottom end of the spectrum, had a small bounce, and then of course, very aggressive sell-off, but the point is it still found that bounce. So NVIDIA is a stock that actually does respect the Ballinger Bands very, very nicely. Not every stock does, obviously nothing is perfect, but NVIDIA is a stock that does, for the most part at least, right? Not always. So again, nothing is perfect. Like for instance, here when it just completely rocketed up, or here when it completely crashed down, but for the most part, it does. And the Ballinger Bands, they're pretty wide at the moment, right? That's, to me, signals the fact that because the Ballinger Bands are not contracting, that there's a good chance that this is probably closer to a top than not, at least as of right now, because it's a large gap between the two, if that makes sense, right? As opposed to when it's a lot tighter, then there's a good chance that if it does breach one of them, it can continue hugging that side for a little bit longer than usual, as opposed to getting an instant bounce. Just keep that in mind. So yeah, essentially what I'm saying is all these points being put together tells me the fact that, at least as of right now, obviously if we break above 120, that's a completely different story, but as it looks right now, to me personally, this stock at the moment is a little bit more on the overextended side in a massive area of resistance. Even the stochastic over here is now on the upper end of the spectrum. So, excuse me, it's just not, if there's a place to reject is what I'm trying to say. it's around here. It doesn't mean it has to happen tomorrow. I'm not saying it's going to crash tomorrow, guys. Run, sell, sell. No, of course not, right? It could take time. We can go sideways for a bit, maybe even go up a little more. Absolutely, we can go up a little bit more. We can go up even slightly higher, maybe even touch the 119s, maybe even touch the 120s briefly, right? Get some people to FOMO in, really, bring in that FOMO, get people excited just to trap them. We'll see. But as of right now, that's what I personally believe. Now, again, like I said, if we somehow end up actually breaking out and confirming that this is going to be a support now, this massive trend line that we've been getting smacked down several times in a row, yeah, that's a different story. That is a different story. We're not there yet. And I'd rather wait at this point, right? There's no reason to buy up here when you're literally just a few dollars away from potentially much stronger confirmation, as opposed to being essentially that liquidity for people to exit on, right? Anyway, that's just my opinion. Again, we'll see how it goes with that. But yeah, the 1 hour as well, you can see the 1 hour RSI also into overbought rather territories as well. So that's something else that I'm not a huge fan of seeing. So every time you can see, at least recently, anytime it's gotten anywhere close to the oversold territories up here, bam, it was a top. Overbought rather here, it was a short-term top. Overbought here, it wasn't a top necessarily, but it also just went sideways. It didn't really do anything after that for a while. And now we're again in the same level that we did all of those times before. So let's see. Again, it doesn't mean it has to crash all the way down, but that's just something worth noting. So in other words, 117 to 120, massive area of resistance, support to the downside. For NVIDIA, for me, two main levels, right? The first one is going to be pretty much right around this 115, right? If NVIDIA sells off to about 115, that will be the first level of support. And I could see at the very least a stalling. If not, maybe that could be that all she wrote and we go sideways from here and then head higher. I don't think that'll happen. I don't think this is a strong enough support for that. I think it'll stall there. And I think, if we do sell off, let's say tomorrow or something, potentially aggressively or whatever, I do think it'll stop around here. I do think this will hold at least some level of the bleeding. But to me personally, what I'll be looking for for me to get more interested in the stock, from my personal perspective, will be closer to the bottom end of the kind of massive channel that it's in, the rising channel, which again, if this were to happen sometime, let's say in the middle of next week, maybe like Wednesday or something like that, 111-ish, 112, again, depending on how quick it happens, then that'll be back to retest this area, massive area of support, and it'll be at the bottom end of this rising channel, so where the risk reward, at least to me personally, will be much more favorable. That's assuming it does get a rejection here, which I expect it to. Again, like I said, if it doesn't and it continues to rally for, defying all odds and whatnot, and it really truly breaks 120 and confirms it as support, that's a different story. And then this would be that nicer kind of risk reward type scenario. I don't think this is going to happen personally, but it could, but it absolutely could. I'm not completely denying that possibility. It's just, as it stands right now up here, the risk reward to me personally just isn't really there. That's just my opinion though, right? That's just my opinion. So let me know what you think down below. Let's take a look at options flow very quickly here and see if we can spot anything interesting or unusual for NVIDIA. Tesla's definitely been getting more attention lately. I think NVIDIA, hold on a second, what was that? Let me take a quick peek at this one. Yeah, a lot of spy puts came in, as you can see here towards the end of the day, so that's not the most ideal thing. So let's see how that plays out. But yeah, looking at NVIDIA options more specifically, pretty mixed. I'm not gonna lie, NVIDIA surprisingly has been nice 14.2 million down all the way over here when NVIDIA was still at 117.32. So pretty much where it's at right now for the end of this month. So that's pretty nice, but it is pretty heavily in the money. So I'm not really sure what the intent behind that is. Actually, nice call flow throughout the day in the morning. I will give it that. But it's hard to say if the profits on these have been taken as of right now. Yeah, someone bought a lot for that 100 strike 530 expiration. So that's pretty interesting to see. But towards the end of the day, I like to look at it, what happened towards the end of the day. Nothing really, honestly, nothing really too crazy one way or the other. So that's why, to me, I'll just rely on the technicals. And the technicals suggest that this is not the place to be excited and FOMO in. Just my opinion. Let's see. I said the same thing up here when people were telling me it was going to 160. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to drop like this. I don't think it's going to be anything like anywhere remotely as bad as this. But the risk reward, to me personally, not interested. Not interested. 46 million confirmed bullish flow on NVIDIA as well, though. So yeah, again, I still think even if we get the sell-off, I still think the bulls will overall win. I think overall, if NVIDIA comes back down like this, we'll most likely head higher. I just don't think it'll be straight from here. I think it'll be one more sell-off and then we can head higher. That's my personal expectation. But let's see. So anyways, thank you so much for watching. See you tomorrow. Peace.